God's people had been away from their homeland for many years. One of them, Daniel, had many visions from God about what would happen in the future. He saw 4 beasts representing 4 great empires, and a son of man who would reign for ever and ever. He saw a ram and a goat, which stood for the Persian Empire and the Greek Empire. He saw a man with a face like lightning and a voice like the sound of many waters, who told him about many coming wars and kings. And he was told about the end of the world, when the dead would come back to life. He was also told about a Messiah who would be cut off and would bring an end to sin. After 70 years, Daniel prayed that the exile might end, just as the prophet Jeremiah had said it would. "We have sinned and done wrong," he prayed, "but to the Lord our God belong mercy and forgiveness." God heard his prayer, and he soon began to bring his people back to their own country. God moved the heart of Cyrus, the Persian king, to let the Jewish people return home to Jerusalem, where they could rebuild the temple. A large group rose up to go there, and Cyrus gave them the holy vessels which King Nebuchadnezzar had taken long ago. Around 50,000 people went back, and in Jerusalem they built an altar to the Lord. A man called Joshua was the high priest, and Zerubbabel was the descendant of King David. They offered sacrifices to the Lord and kept a special feast, the Feast of Tabernacles. In the 2nd year, Joshua and Zerubbabel led the people in starting to rebuild the temple. When the foundation was laid, trumpets and cymbals were sounded and the people sang. There was such a loud shout that it could be heard from far away. But enemies arose and began to cause trouble for God's people. They tried to make them afraid and sent a letter to the new king, Artaxerxes. They told him lies, and the king ordered the building work to stop. But later, another king came to power, Darius the Great, a different Darius from the one in the story of Daniel. God then spoke to the people through 2 prophets, Haggai and Zechariah, and they began to build again. This was reported back to Darius. "King Cyrus said that we could rebuild the temple," the Jews told him. So Darius searched through the records and found the scroll which had Cyrus's decree written on it. Darius then said the work should be allowed to continue, and anyone who tried to stop it would be killed. So the temple was finished, and it was dedicated to God with 100 bulls, 200 rams, 400 lambs, and 12 goats. And the people celebrated Passover, and there was much joy in the land. We learn from this that God fulfills his word. He said through Jeremiah that the exile would end, and what he said would happen came true. And we learn that God overthrows enemies. Men tried to stop the temple from being built, but God made sure they didn't succeed. And we learn that God is merciful. He forgave his people for their sinfulness and brought them back home again. And he forgives us too, when we believe in Jesus, the Messiah.